Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to episode number 985 of NoDQ video right here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel. That means only 15 episodes to go until episode number 1000. Please keep spreading the word, tell a friend, mark the date on your calendar, August 16th. That will be the episode number 1000 of NoDQ video. Before I get to your questions today, I would like to thank everyone for checking out the premiere of Wrestling Trivia Challenge. Overwhelmingly positive feedback for the first video, which means, yes, more trivia videos are coming. Stay tuned for that. And another new series debuting this week, the NoDQ panel. Stay tuned for that. With that being said, let's get down to your questions. First one comes from Jeremiah Dorset. Thoughts on Jason Jordan going to Raw? At first I thought it would be Dixie Carter or Stephanie. Did WWE just throw a curveball at us? Even though Dixie Carter was rumored and Eric Bischoff even brought up Dixie Carter, I was not expecting that to happen. Now Stephanie, that I thought was a realistic possibility that Stephanie would return, Triple H would return, and that would set up Angle versus Triple H. But WWE has gone in a different direction with Jason Jordan being revealed as the illegitimate son of Kurt Angle, which I have to say it was pretty underwhelming. I'm not against Jordan getting this push. I think that this is great for him, and maybe this storyline will turn out to lead to better things for him. But I think the problem here was that WWE overhyped it. WWE made a big deal out of this. It was being teased as something that could potentially ruin Kurt Angle's career. But the fact is, in the storyline, Kurt Angle was dating a woman in college. He wasn't cheating on anybody. He did not even know about this son until just recently. How would this have affected Kurt Angle's career in a negative way? How is it going to ruin his career? That whole thing made absolutely no sense. But again, I'll give it time. Let's see how it plays out. However, knowing WWE's track record, my fear is that this storyline in a couple of weeks will just fizzle out and they'll just go back to the way things were before. And the whole father-son thing will be dropped. That whole aspect of the storyline will just cease to exist after a while. You would think that at some point it's going to be revealed that Jordan is not actually Kurt Angle's son. I suppose they could do an angle where Jordan turns heel and reveals that the whole thing was a setup and Kurt Angle was lied to the whole time. And that was Jordan's way of getting ahead in WWE. That might be interesting. So, like I said, I'll give WWE time. Let's see how this storyline plays out. But so far, I think the reveal was pretty underwhelming. But we'll give it time and see if it develops into something bigger. This one comes from Oscar. How long do you see this illegitimate child storyline going for? If WWE writers really were talented and knew what they were doing and could write an intriguing long-term storyline, it could go on for several months. But like I've said before, my fear is that it's just going to fizzle out in a couple of weeks. The writers will have no idea how to proceed with this. They could do a lot of interesting things. Like I mentioned before, maybe Jordan turns heel, maybe this does lead to Stephanie returning. Maybe they talk about there being a conflict of interest, Kurt Angle playing favorites with his son, and that's what leads to Stephanie returning. There are different ways that this can go, which is why I'm not going to completely crap on the storyline right now. I will give it time, I will be patient, but I could see WWE possibly dropping it in a couple of weeks if the ratings don't go up and if the writers cannot come up with anything. I could see WWE just giving up on it right away. Would not shock me if that happened. Got this one here from King of Kings. What's up with WWE breaking up these tag teams? It's getting ridiculous. It's causing a rift, nice pun there, for me to stay interested. I think that that's the other big negative of this storyline, is that WWE has broken up American Alpha, and now you have Jason Jordan on Monday Night Raw. It did seem like that was the direction, with Chad Gable doing singles matches over the past few weeks that seemed to be leading to an American Alpha breakup, which I think was too soon. I think they could have had mileage as a heel tag team. But WWE does need babyface tag teams as well. Maybe you could have traded American Alpha to Monday Night Raw as faces. It just seems like WWE is breaking up a lot of teams right now, and on both sides, the tag divisions are looking pretty weak right now, especially when it comes to babyface tag teams. On SmackDown, you got Breezango, the Fashion Police, and the New Day. On Raw, you have the Hardys, and that's about it. We saw Golden Truth break up. Anderson and Gallows are still heels. You have the Revival, they're heels. It just feels like Raw and SmackDown are both lacking in tag teams. Also, Enzo and Cass, another team that has broken up. You have Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley being teased to break up on SmackDown. It feels like WWE's breaking up too many teams in a short period of time. So that is, in my opinion, the other negative here in this whole thing. Got this one here from Brohawk. So where does Chad Gable go from here? I think that perhaps Chad Gable will get a big singles push. I mean, AJ Styles really put him over big. Despite Gable losing, AJ called Gable a really tough opponent, said that the match with Gable was tougher than the Battle Royal. AJ really praised Chad Gable, so maybe WWE will do a storyline where AJ becomes aligned with Gable and AJ takes Gable under his wing and the two of them work together and Gable gets elevated from that. We'll see. I mean, this should be an opportunity for both guys to shine. Both guys are really talented. Both have potential. I just feel like I said in that previous question that it's too soon to break up American Alpha. But maybe they will succeed on their own. Time will tell. This one comes from Andre. Hey Aaron, who do you see Bobby Roode and Asuka feuding with and the brand they're going to? Man, that is a loaded question and a really hard one to answer, because I think it will depend on the landscape of Raw and SmackDown when they do get called up. I mean, it really depends on where they're needed. If Roode is needed on SmackDown, he goes to SmackDown. If he's needed on Raw, he goes to Raw. And who knows what the landscape will be, who will be the heels, who will be the faces. Bobby Roode right now is a strong heel. So you would go with the brand that really needs a strong heel. On SmackDown, you have Jinder Mahal. Like him or not, he is a strong heel. He is a well-defined heel, at least to the American fans. You have Rusev, who's a strong heel. Raw, it's not so clear. The biggest heel is the guy who the company is still portraying as the big dog, the guy who is Superman and overcomes the odds and signs the autographs and kisses the babies, Roman Reigns. I think Raw could use a strong heel like Bobby Roode. You do have Samoa Joe. You do have a few strong heels on Raw. You have The Miz. So it just depends on which brand could use Bobby Roode and needs a top heel. As for Asuka, I mean, she could be a heel or she can be a face. She's really not clearly defined either way. She is technically a face right now, I think. Is she? I'm not really sure, because she's been at the house show in Portland over the weekend. She beat up the two girls. Actually, she beat up 3 people. There were 3 women that got involved. So I think that Asuka could really go either way, and it just depends on where she will be utilized the best, where there's a good spot for her, and she's considered to be a dominant competitor. And if you're going to bring her in and call her up to the main roster, you need to do something significant with her. So wherever she fits in the best and will get the biggest push is where she should go. And as far as who they feud with, I mean, I'd love to see Bobby Roode feud with a top babyface like a Finn Balor. I think that would be very intriguing. And as for Asuka, I mean, she could feud with a top heel like Alexa Bliss. She could She could have another feud with Bayley. She could feud with Sasha Banks. I mean, I think Raw might be better for her, but again, it just depends on where she'll be utilized better. This one comes from Walter. Hi Aaron, should Nakamura answer AJ Styles' open challenge and have a surprise fight between them instead of being announced? No, I think WWE should definitely save this match for WrestleMania. That is my opinion. This is a WrestleMania caliber match. This is not something you should just give away on free television. This is a match, if built up properly, could be one of the WrestleMania main events. I've said it before. If it was my call, I would have one of them win the Royal Rumble, challenge the other for the WWE title at WrestleMania, do that as SmackDown Live's main event, and then to please Vince and draw in the casual fans, you do John Cena versus Roman Reigns as the Raw Universal title main event. That is what I would do, and the first AJ Nakamura match in WWE will be really special. Don't blow it by giving away that match too soon. Let the fans wait, slowly build it up. Got this one here from Zubair. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so I apologize. What were your thoughts on the Raw from Madison Square Garden in November 16th of 2009? The one with DX versus Jericho versus Cena, Taker, and the Kofi Orton brawl. To my knowledge, that was the last WWE Raw that aired from Madison Square Garden. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. That was definitely a memorable Raw because of the fact that it was in Madison Square Garden. It was before they did the renovation, and you had that big angle with Kofi Kingston doing the boom drop in the stands to Orton. That was a huge angle, and that was what many thought was going to be the start of Kofi Kingston getting a main event push. Didn't really work out that way, and that main event was hot. I mean, that was a star-studded main event. Unfortunately, again, I was not a fan of that Survivor Series, the build-up with John Cena versus Triple H versus John Cena. It was centered around Hornswoggle. And to me, that feud fell really flat because of Hornswoggle's involvement in the storyline. So beyond that, I mean, I wasn't really a fan of what was going on in that time period with the build-up for the pay-per-view, but that was a memorable Raw. I mean, I think mostly due to the main event and the Kofi Orton angle, as you mentioned. This one comes from Bella K. Royce. Do you think Mickie James will get a final reign with the title? I think she deserves it. I would not rule it out. The never say never rule applies, but I think it's a long shot. I think she's there in WWE right now to help put over the younger talent. She's in that Shawn Michaels role in a way. When Shawn Michaels came back, yes, he did win the world title, but he's Shawn Michaels. And after that, he never won the title again. It wasn't like he needed the title. He could go out there, work with the younger talent. He'd win some, he'd lose some, but he did not need the title to go out there and have great matches and great performances. And he did not get one last title run right before he retired. So if Shawn did not get it, I think it's unlikely that Mickie James gets it. I mean, again, anything could happen, but I would lean towards no as my answer. How cool would have it been to have seen Jake Roberts versus Raven in their primes? The promos alone would have been sweet. I agree. I think that would have been a really interesting matchup. I mean, the two of them definitely have very similar characters, similar promo styles. Both did DDTs as finishers. So yeah, I totally agree with you. That would have been a very interesting matchup to have both of those guys in their primes. And yeah, the promos back and forth would have been really interesting. Although sometimes I think it's better when you have guys with different styles going at it. And if two guys are exactly the same with their promos, it's not quite as dynamic. So when you look at it from that perspective, sometimes it's better to have two guys with different promo styles and even different wrestling styles. It makes it a little bit more interesting. You know, you don't want to have two guys that are basically the same thing in there. You know, that could get a little boring. So it just depends on how you would do it. Got this one here from Patrick. Why isn't Harlem Heat or the Steiner Brothers in the Hall of Fame? I think Scott Steiner is the obvious reason, because WWE fears that his Hall of Fame speech would be a complete train wreck, and he would go into business for himself and say some really controversial things. But I feel both teams deserve it. I mean, the Steiner brothers, arguably the greatest tag team of their era, along with the Road Warriors. I mean, it's definitely back and forth between those two teams. It's like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. It's just a matter of which style you preferred, which team, your own personal preference. Harlem Heat, I mean, I would say they're not at that level of the Steiners and the Road Warriors, but still a great tag team of the 1990s, even though they were never competing in WWE. I still say there's a decent chance of Harlem Heat going in. But again, that would be if WWE really wanted to give Booker T another Hall of Fame ring, which they might. Booker T's definitely on good terms with the company. He's working with them still. And I think that alone will increase the chances. And that's a bit sad to say, that because of the fact that Booker T's working there and on good terms, that they would consider doing that. The Steiners, I think, of the two teams definitely deserves it more, but I think realistically, it seems to be more likely that Harlem Heat would go in because of the politics. So it's stupid, but that's the way it is in the world of WWE. This one comes from Daz. Do you think the Money in the Bank contract should be defended like a title? No, I think that once you win the Money in the Bank briefcase, you've earned it. It's yours. You have a full year to use it whenever, and I think unless there's extraordinary circumstances, that it should not be defended like a title. If you need to do it for whatever reason, like in 2007, Mr. Kennedy got injured and WWE shot that angle where Kennedy ended up putting his briefcase on the line against Edge, and Edge won it and then cashed it in. That was a situation where WWE had to change plans. So if you have to do something like that, then I understand it. But for most circumstances and most of the time, I would not personally do it. That'll wrap it up for NoDQ video. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please share it. Tell a friend on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, and so forth. Anybody you know who watches wrestling, have them check out NoDQ video. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for Battleground coverage, all the latest news and rumors regarding Battleground, and I will see you guys next time.